Alex Hormozi is a master at sales. He grew Gym Launch to 46 million before exiting it, with sales being the core skill. So in this video, we're gonna have a look at Alex Hormozi's best advice on sales.
We are all one decision away from changing our lives forever, and a lot of us don't even know it. And the difference between the decisions you make today and the ones that you made last year, if they've gotten you to where you are right now, they were not good decisions. And so if we want to have more power in our lives, we have to first understand what power is, and second, how to unlock it through the actions and decisions that we make. And if you have a company or a business or a job where you need to influence other people, or you need to get people to say yes, or you need people to make decisions, or most importantly, make decisions for yourself that are going to change your life for the better, then we have to understand what the topic means.
So this is a pretty unique way to start a sales training video. Instead of Alex explaining his process, he first goes through what power is and how to unlock it. And by doing this, he's able to control a very important part of sales that most salespeople don't even understand. Now, the reason why it's so important for him to do this is to tap into your awareness level. Now, your awareness level is what makes you go from completely unaware to wanting to buy something. When you clicked on Alex's video, Alex isn't going to assume that you're a master salesperson. He understands the ins and outs of sales. Now, instead, he makes it super simple to understand. He simplifies sales down into a simpler form, right? So he can slowly teach you more information. And I like to do the same thing when I'm on sales calls. So for example, I like to use analogies. Now, when you're talking about something that's maybe complex or something that the prospect might not be 100% educated on to the level that you're educated on, I love the use of analogies in sales. So comparing what you're explaining and comparing it to something that the prospect easily knows or something that's pretty simple in society. Now, I love to use the analogy because we sell sales systems and people. So I love to make the analogy of your business is like a vehicle and the sales is like the engine of the vehicle, the leads are the gasoline, and you need to have your transmission, you need to have the engine perfectly built out, you need to have gasoline that matches the engine, not regular, you need premium if you have a great business, and the salesperson is going to be the driver that's going to be able to drive your car from point A to point Z. So what we do in our business is we help make sure that the engine is built perfectly, you have enough horsepower, the transmission is working, and you have the right gasoline, as well as they're going to supply you with the person and the driver that's going to be able to drive this from point A to point Z. Now, that's an analogy. It makes it sound super simple. Like, oh, great, they just do that. Instead of me going into the nitty-gritty granularities of what exactly we do in regards to building a sales team and system, we can just use an analogy.
To me, power was like the emperor in Star Wars, you know, the lightning, bold fingers, anybody? And so to me, that was like power, but I saw it as a negative thing. And I feel like as I developed, I started to learn that power is neutral. You can be incredibly powerful and bad, incredibly powerful and good.
This right here is something that I feel is very important for salespeople to take note of. And Alex is saying this before he truly gets into this video, right? This is a 90-minute video. Alex is saying this before the video starts just to show how authentic and genuine he is. Because he's basically telling you that while you can be a crazy powerful salesperson, it can also make you a bad person. Just look at the salespeople who only care about selling, commissions without a care for ethics. And as you delve into sales, make sure that you're on the spectrum of good salespeople in your search for power. The root of sales is serving other people and actually providing a solution for the prospect. The more that you can act in a sales environment that's not self-serving, when a prospect is on the call with you, they can understand that if you're just trying to make this sale all means necessary, you're not actually listening to them and you don't really truly care about them, you're going to close like a crazy amount less leads, because you actually want to lead your sales conversations that I'm going to help this person come to the best understanding. If what we sell worked for them, I'm going to do everything in my power to help that person understand that and persuade them. You're not convincing someone to do something for your own benefit.
Selling properly is the first step becoming a coach, right? Your first impressions and the expectations you set dictate the relationship. How you sell, the fact that you use logic in the sale will set you up for success and your client for success in the long run. 8, selling is helping prospects make decisions to help themselves.
Now, because the true power of sales isn't in the amount of money that you can make or the number of sales you can close or how big your commission is, it's actually in the ability to help people get the help that they need. And if you're not doing that, then you're doing sales completely wrong.
I think there are different selling styles. Because I've trained a lot of sales teams, we've built a lot of sales teams, sold a lot of different industries now. People sell differently. Who here would consider themselves like an emotional seller? Like you get like emotionally invested in the prospect, you get them to cry, anybody like that? You know what I'm saying? Cool. Who here is somebody who is more of a like, I'm not gonna let you leave type salesman? You know who you are, just raise your hand. I am that way too sometimes.
Now, if you push a rock off a cliff, it will fall, right? Everything in life is caused by simple, logical rules. And sales is like that too. People will only buy if they want your product. If they don't, you can't sell. The rule of selling with logic sounds really simple, but then you take a look at a beginner salesperson who tries to force their prospects to say yes without knowing that they're just pushing that prospect away. You can't force someone to say yes if they don't want to. That just goes against simple human nature. But there is a way to bend that logic, and that is to slowly guide your prospect from hating what you sell to loving it. And it's not through force of ignoring your prospect's complaints. You actually have to sell from a basis of emotion and logic, because people are emotional creatures as well as they are logical creatures. So the more that you can actually understand how logic can support their emotion and why they want to buy, the more deals that you're actually going to close.
Blocks one's way or prevents or hinders progress. When you disagree with them, that is an obstacle. This happens before you solicit the sale. Someone says some before you even get to the sale, that's an obstacle. A simple example I hear all the time. Hey, why'd you hop on the call today? Hey, why'd you walk in the gym today? Whatever it is, right? Them. I just wanted to find out a little bit more about the program. First 10 seconds, obstacle. You're not here to find out more about the program. You're here because you're fat.
Now, this is a really good point. So obstacles are what are keeping you from making the sale in a lot of situations. Understanding that every single prospect is going to have obstacles. So making sure that you're prepared for what obstacles people are going to say on the calls. How do you get that educated, right? You listen to calls, you practice, you do repetitions, and you actually understand your prospects. If you're selling a product or service, you should be selling a product or service to a very similar type avatar or archetype. Now, the better you can understand the common obstacles that the people you're going to be speaking with are having, you can actually prepare and understand how to address obstacles before the obstacle gets in your way. If you're doing hurdles in track and field, the way in which you have to approach that obstacle, you have to prepare for that hurdle, depending on how fast you're running, to be able to clear your legs over that hurdle. If you ran straight up into the hurdle, stopped, and then jumped, and then started to run again, you're not going to win that race.
Time in multiple ways, and I'll show you how. Value, price, money, etc. Fit, I'm a special snowflake. Others, which is I don't have the authority to make the decision. And then finally self, which is what if I just don't make the decision? Let life make it for me, right? Avoidance, stall. You go from surface level to core. And as a side note, you should never get stuck on the stuff near the top. And ideally, you should really never get stuck anywhere on this equation if the person wants what you have and you truly believe in what you have to help them. And I mean that. Like, if you understand this thoroughly, you can walk someone towards helping themselves. Okay, this is what they look like, or this is what they sound like in reality. Not a good time right now. I'm really busy, right? That's time. Can't afford it. Too expensive.
Now, what Alex says these are obstacles. He goes into more so what objections are later in the call. So I'm super excited about how he breaks up obstacles and objections in his sales process, being the sales master, right? Now, these are pretty easy to overcome. Now, the way that I like to overcome a lot of obstacles in my sales process and how I coach sales is isolating each one of these in a conversation. More than likely going to hear not just one of these. You're not going to only hear a time obstacle or a fit obstacle or an avoidance obstacle. Most of these are kind of intertwined in a lot of conversations. And if you've been in sales, you understand what I'm talking about, right? So someone might not have the money to, and they might also not be sure that it's for them. So making sure that you don't just answer questions or have canned responses. The best way that I coach and how to overcome obstacles is pretty simple, is you just acknowledge that they said it, you affirm that that's a problem for them, and then you ask a question. Are you looking to move forward? Not a good time right now. I got to talk to my partner or spouse. No, totally understand it's not a good time right now and you got to run this by the partner or the spouse, but just curious, why would it not be a good time? or is now a better time than any. And based on the information that you've received earlier in that call, it's going to help you substantiate what you're about to say. So if someone, like in Hormozi's example, right, he's talking about fitness. So if someone's like, yeah, it's not a good time right now. Like, it's not a good time right now to get in shape. It's not a good time right now to lower your body fat. Using the things that they said earlier in the call to substantiate why you're asking that question and why you're pushing back on that obstacle.
And so you might have to overcome multiple layers as you peel back. And based on the objection they give you, you can know where you're at. You can know how close you are. If someone just says, I have to think about it, then you're like, great. I'm talking to the person who's in power and the decision maker, and I just need to get them to say yes. If they're like, I don't have, they're casting the power away. And some of you guys are probably casting your power away on decisions you need to make, which is why I'm making this presentation. Even though that these are the things that distort people's realities, because you're like, no one's ever said, circumstances are getting in my way, right? Like, no one says that, right? They manifest in 5 ways that I want to equip you to deal with.
Now, in order for you to break objections, you have to dig deeper, like I was mentioning. You have to start gaining a solid understanding of your prospects so you can actually tear down these objections one by one. Now, a lot of objections is you have to truly understand the prospect previously into the call. The best way to handle an objection is before the objection even rears its ugly head. So, in my opinion, an objection is just a question that's been left unanswered that you'd allowed to be infected. Now, you could have easily answered that question earlier in the sales call, but now that you've gotten to this point, right, you're at the end of the night, you're then asking for the pitch, you're asking for the price, and now this question that you left unanswered has now reared its ugly head in this part of the call and became an objection. So all objections are rooted out of a few different things. It's going to be a lack of information, a lack of trust, or just not truly understanding what it is that you do yet. And what Hormozi talks about is that objections are really surface level. You have to get deeper. So like a good analogy, like I mentioned earlier in the call for this, is being like a doctor and diagnosing the patient. If I went into the doctor's office and I said, hey doc, my knee hurts, he's not going to automatically just schedule me for a knee surgery. The doctor's going to have to diagnose me. He has to ask me a couple of questions. What have I done? What have I been doing? So he could actually find out that the shoes I'm wearing are unsupportive of me, which is causing instability in my leg, which is bothering my knee. So it's actually a foot problem and not a knee problem. So when a prospect is coming in saying, oh, this is the problem, it's my knee, you have to ask good questions and diagnose the prospect to understand what's the root cause of this surface level objection.
The fact that it's a lot for you is good. It means you're going to try hard. The second was like, well, it's a lot in terms of absolute amount, but relative amount, it's very little, right? Because if all this does is add $10,000 a month to your income, is it worth it?
Yes, what Alex is talking about here is actually helping a prospect truly understand value in correlation to price or investment. Really good examples here. If all this did was thing they want, or if all this thing did was also thing that they want, would that be worth it? Earlier in the call, they're saying how they want to have a six-pack for their wedding. So if all this thing did was to get you to 6% body fat, so on your honeymoon, you had a six-pack for your wife, would that be worth it? Then it's belief. So at what point would it be more unreasonable to believe than not to believe? Or compared to a 4-year degree or a franchise blank. I really like this third purple arrow here. So what I do a lot on my calls is taking my price and correlating it to something that the prospect already sees as a high value thing to make it seem like the price isn't that great. So an example here is with like a car or a house. If I'm asking somebody for a $25,000 investment, that might seem like a big amount of money in this situation. But if I'm able to create context and an analogy of something that they already perceive to be valuable, saying, hey, if I was able to give you my car, which is a $100,000 car, for $25,000 because you know the actual value of it, and then the price is below it, you are now more inclined to take out a loan, get financing, do whatever it takes because you're getting a good deal. But people don't see it in those ways on a sales call because it's not an actual physical thing if you're selling a service. If we're selling a service, the ROI or the value is something that's perceived by that person. So what your job is as a salesperson is to increase that perceived value because perceived value is infinite, right? Intrinsic value is finite. So you can create a larger perceived value of your product or service by the words and the context that you give your prospect.
Authority, all right? This is one of my favorite, and so this one, instead of having 3, I really just have like one very good statement of reasoning that you should understand, okay? This is real shit. So This is more of a process than it is anything else. But the spouse or decision maker is not there, right? Now, note for you guys, a lot of you guys have had the opportunity to go talk to a spouse, but a lot of you guys don't have that in your business, right? Like, spouse ain't there, and they leave, they're not coming back, right? Or they are, but a very small percentage don't wait for it. Okay, so what we have to do is try and sidestep it by isolating the objection and casting aside the partner, because the partner's not there. So how could they object to anything? They don't even fucking know who you are, right? And so the idea is, and again, this is assuming if you have a really long-term thing, then you want the partner to be there, right? Like ideally, that's what you have. But if you don't have the opportunity, then you got to go through the next step, all right? Which is, what do you think they wouldn't like? And then they will tell you, and then you just overcome the thing, which has nothing to do with the spouse, because spouse isn't there, right? Very easy sidestep. Does that make sense? This works really well. It's like, why wouldn't they? It's like, well, because they don't want me to fail. Ooh, they don't want you to fail. Let's talk about you. And so this is the process that I walk through.
This is really good stuff in regards to the partner or the spousal objection. Isolating it, like I spoke about earlier, realizing they never needed the permission and it's something that they created inside of their head. And then they realize that the spouse or partner has most likely already given that person the permission. So like he said earlier, and what I said earlier, is a lot of these things are surface level and people are saying those things out of a lack of belief, lack of understanding, lack of trust, or lack of perceived value. So if someone's saying, yeah, I have a talk to my business partner or spouse, what they're really saying is that I'm just not totally confident in making this decision and I need to be polite in saying no, or I need to think about it. So what Alex is talking about is really good stuff here in regards to isolating that, sidestepping that, and actually getting to the root problem.
To me, resonate the best, right? And so why a lot is good is kind of like my first one here. And so the reason that if someone gasps or think that this is a lot of money, you just ask them, is this a lot of money to you? And they're gonna say, yeah. If they say no, then you're like, awesome, buy it. And if they say yes, right? And if they say yes, then you're like, that's the exact reason why you're gonna be successful. Because there's other people who buy this thing and you know what? They're not all in on it.
That's a really good point here too, overcoming pricing objections, right? Is creating that belief system. And with a lot of large purchases, like my mentor, what he says to me is that he charges high prices, not for him, but for the person that's buying it. Because when you pay something that you're uncomfortable with, you're signaling to yourself that you're worthy of large purchases and you're about to make that next quantum leap in your business. Now, when you're making a large investment, for anyone watching this video who's made a large investment in coaching or mentorship, or something, buying a business, you truly understand that when you do make that uncomfortable, big, large purchase, you're so much more of a belief system. Like, oh my God, I'm somebody who can spend this amount of money on something like this. So when you help the prospect understand the positive ramifications of spending money, like paying money is the easy part. The next thing that does or signals to your subconscious is that you're ready for this big next step or taking this next step. And what he's mentioning is having that belief that you're going to take this thing way more seriously, because this is an amount of money that you can't let go to waste. So you're actually going to get a better result than the multimillionaire who can just throw this money, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Do you think that you're going to be busy again in the future? Well, yeah. So you want this to last in the long run, and you do think you're going to be busy again in the future. Well, then don't you think it'd be best to start now when you are busy? Because if you learn how to do it when you're busy, you'll be able to do it forever. If you can only learn it during a perfect circumstance, then you're going to fall off when it gets busy again.
So that right there, guys, is probably one of my favorite parts of this entire video. That's such a good objection handle with using logic and emotion, where somebody's saying, yeah, I'm busy, and then just pointing out logically that, are you going to be busy again in the future? Which is a simple, logical yes. And then actually creating that belief system that if you learn how to do this while you're busy, like you're going to be able to do it when you're not busy. So actually taking action when it's imperfect is the best course of action, because if you wait for you not to be busy, it's probably never going to happen. So you're now stopping or impeding your possible result.
And they only get to have it once. So you better be better at it than them. Closing is a dance, not a fight. It's seduction, not I mean, I'm being super serious about this. The goal is not to beat them into submission. The goal is to sell from your back foot. It's like, I'm good. I want to help you. And if that means not doing this, then I love it.
That right there is the essence of sales. The more aggressive, the more the prospect feels that you need the sale more than they need to buy it, is when you're going to lose all of your deals. When you're leading and you're selling from an area of you could buy this or you cannot buy this, it really doesn't matter to me. It has to be a good decision and it has to make sense. And whether you buy this or whether you don't buy this doesn't really change anything. When you need it less, they're going to want it more. So you think about it like magnets. If you flip the magnets, when you push, the other one repels. So some salespeople are like that, where they chase the prospects. They seem needy. They say yes to everything. No matter what, they'll do whatever. They'll sell their soul for the sale. Where the salespeople who close the most are the ones that don't care if you buy or don't buy, because they're good with you making the best decision for your business, and all they care about is helping you come to that decision. All right, so that was some of Alex Hormozi's best sales advice. And if you want to see those tips live in action, you can check out this video where I cold call people live. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.